This is NDTV, and you're watching Classics.
Years ago, in August 1960, Dr. Grace Morley took over as director of the National Museum in Delhi. If till then museums were colonial knowledge-building projects, Nehru was determined that India would break from that past and create a museum that would assert India's heritage for her own people. He personally invited Grace Morley, a renowned museologist, to India for this purpose. When she took over the National Museum, most of the artifacts were displayed in the Darbar Hall of Rashtrapati Bhavan. The new building that was to house the museum was not complete and barely had any galleries. But Morley and her team have said to have worked night and day to achieve the impossible. A world-class museum that opened within 4 months on December 1st, 1960. India's heritage, its artifacts, what it has to display is incomparable. But the once reputed National Museum is today a bit of a national shame. This week in 24 Hours, we look at some of the reasons for this unraveling. The museum has the benefit of a central location in Delhi, a vast space and an unrivaled collection of artifacts. But walk in and the decay, both institutional and literal, is in plain sight. The mother goddess from the excavated site of Dholavira, Gujarat, among other jewels, displayed in one of the museum's most frequently visited Harappa Gallery. What strikes you instantly and will do so throughout is the dull, lackluster display, a strong sense that somewhere India got left behind in the science of museology. Tucked away in a corner, poorly lit, badly neglected. Arguably, this is one of the gallery's most famous pieces, the Dancing Girl. Earlier, the only thing that pointed to this world-famous exhibit was this little tiny sign which just says Dancing Girl 2700 to 2000 BC, Mohenjo-daro, and a somewhat tackier depiction of this. This week, they have thankfully written up a slightly more extensive description of this. So who's responsible or accountable to some of the questions that we may want to ask in this gallery? Well, that's a tricky question. 2 years ago, this gallery was curated by D.P. Sharma, who left for Banaras without a handover. Since then, this post has been empty. So is the post of the deputy curator. When D.P. Sharma, the last curator, left, he's said to have taken the keys to the displays. So for a long time, the museum could not even access its own exhibits. And now, in the absence of a curator or deputy curator, the only person available to answer queries is the assistant curator. ये जो dancing girl है, इसको हम थोड़ा सा prominently ज़्यादा नहीं display कर सकते हैं?
नहीं, कर क्यों नहीं सकते? करने में तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, लेकिन सारे एंगल उसके देखने पड़ते हैं, उसकी जो है, क्योंकि ये स्टूडेंट्स के लिए ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट फिगर है और वैसे तो ये मानी हुई वो है. इसकी इम्पोर्टेंस इसलिए ज़्यादा है कि ये मेटल ऑब्जेक्ट में जो ह्यूमन फिगर हैं ये बिल्कुल लिमिटेड है. 2 ही जो है डांसिंग गर्ल मिली हैं, जिसमें से एक ये है, एक पाकिस्तान में है, तो इसलिए ये ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है. लेकिन जो मैंने आपको बताया पहले कि न्यूड फिगर होने के कारण जो है, इसको हम अपनी संस्कृति के हिसाब से हम इतने तक ही, जितना ये डिस्प्ले है, इतने तक ही उचित समझते हैं कि यहीं तक ही ठीक है.
An answer rather hard to digest. The conceptual decay reflected physically too. Bad lighting is another recurring motif. The actual design and science of lighting artifacts is entirely missing here. But what's incomprehensible is why basic light bulbs cannot be changed. This is a stunning piece, finely carved and sculpted from the 2nd century Shunga dynasty. It shows elephants carrying the relics of Buddha. But none of the details are really as visible because the exhibit is just so poorly lit.
वाकई लाइटिंग से कितना डिफरेंस होता है.
This place feels as dull as a funeral parlor, but it's actually a gallery that houses our Gandhara treasures. It's quite unbelievable actually that in this entire panel of lighting, only 2 are actually working. As a result, just spectacular pieces, not lit. When pointed out, the fused bulbs were changed the next day. Now look at the difference. Seepage in a house is a problem. In a museum, it's frightening. The Central Public Works Department is responsible for the physical maintenance of the building, which partly explains the state of affairs. We've been looking for the restrooms, but there's such poor signage that it's almost impossible to locate them. This is about the only signage that you'll find which will help you locate the restrooms in the National Museum. This is the state of the canteen in the basement. The museum shop, meanwhile, is under renovation. Elements that make a vibrant museum and attract people absent here. Another gloomy-looking gallery with some great treasures. This is the Central Asian Antiquities Part 2 gallery. Interestingly enough, Part 1 has been shut to the public for years. What's on display here is a fraction of the fabulous collection that the museum has from Central Asia. Again, the story is of a missing curator. For 20 years, there has been no one in charge, and that has meant utter neglect. In fact, stories of missing curators abound. The curator for the jewellery, epigraphy and numismatics collection died 3 years ago tragically. Her post remained vacant for years.